ESPN.com.
Insurance companies have teams of professionals to fight your claim. If you want to know what your case is really worth, I'm Spencer Callahan. I'd like to help.
Spencer Callahan is the one to see. Call 387-2323.
LA filing number 16-7970.
WNXX, Jackson, KNXX, Donaldsonville, and WDGL HD2 Baton Rouge. This hour brought to you by Spencer Callahan Injury Lawyers, LA 21-12681. Offices in Baton Rouge. Now, The Hunt Palmer Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. That means we're brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. Plenty to get to over the next couple of hours. Got Jacob Beck and Jordan Kitchens back there on the ones and twos. Our normal Tuesday guests will be along on this Tuesday. Glenn West talking some LSU sports at 1:30. Sharif Ishak talking Saints and Pels at 2:30. Very happy stuff with the Pels. Not so happy stuff with the New Orleans Saints. I've got sound from Brian Kelly. I've got sound from Jay Johnson and his coaches show. We've got NFL kickoff rules. I did some research on roster composition of the teams that have made the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. But we're going to start with the New Orleans Saints. And we got some sound from Dennis Allen, and we may get to some of that, we may not. Either way, the biggest story here is very clearly his update on Ryan Ramczyk. And we've known for some time now that the knee's not great. He missed some time this past year. There's some hesitancy in the offseason as to what his health looks like. And in the availability at the Combine, in the availability at the Senior Bowl, it's kind of been a wait-and-see thing with Ryan Ramczyk. They absolutely needed to get it looked at. Seems like they needed to have a procedure done. But there was cautious optimism about whether or not Ryan Ramczyk would play. And you certainly hope that's the case, because Ryan Ramczyk has been a phenomenal player for the New Orleans Saints since they picked him back in the 2017 draft. He jumped in and started 16 games as a rookie. He only missed one game over the next 3 seasons. He was a second-team All-Pro twice. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2019. He was, by any measure, one of the 3 best right tackles in all of football. And you look at that, and you would suggest, okay, that's going to be a guy who plays for the Saints for 12 years. You can stick him there at right tackle. You pay him his money. He's a pro, and he'll be a huge piece to whatever happens, and one of the key pieces in moving on from the Breeze and Peyton era. And in 2021, he only played 10 games, but then he returned and played all 16 in 2022. But last year, you saw that dip to 12 games. Now, the play is not what it once was, but it's still pretty good. These are not end-all, be-all statistics here with Ryan Ramczyk, but you get the point of where I'm going here. The man's been called for holding 12 times. He's played for the Saints for 7 years. 12 holding calls in 101 games. He's a great, great player who has better football behind him than he does in front of him, but he's still a very functional member of your offensive line. And based on what we saw today and heard today from Dennis Allen, it doesn't sound great. Ian Rappaport had a tweet earlier today that said the Saints preparing for the real possibility that offensive tackle Ryan Ramczyk is medically not able to play this season. Coach Dennis Allen alluded to Ramczyk's knee not responding as they had hoped. It's unclear when or if it will, a true question mark. And this is just really tough because you look at the Saints offensive line, this is a mess. It's a mess. I have no other way to put it. You don't have a left tackle. Andrews Pete is not under contract. Trevor Penning has suggested in no way that he's ready to play that position. James Hurst took a pay cut. Do you really want to spend 16, 17 games with James Hurst as your left tackle? I don't. 1 week? Sure. 2 games? Sure. 17? I don't think so. And now, you don't really have a right tackle because at this point, it doesn't sound like you can count on Ryan Ramczyk to play. Now, Landon Young filled in there, and he played okay last year, but again, he's a depth player. He's a substitute. He's never proven he's a high-level NFL tackle. There is a reason that quarterbacks, tackles, and edge rushers are the highest-paid players in the league. It's because their skill set is the hardest to find and the most important. In this league, if you can't protect the passer, affect the passer, and have a passer, you're in big, big trouble. And on the offensive side of things, the Saints have a guy who's capable of throwing the ball around a little bit, but he can't move. And now you're sitting here in March with the big-name free agents kind of flying off the shelves, looking at an offensive line that doesn't have a left tackle or a right tackle. That's not good. And you start to think about the draft, and it becomes, to me, increasingly more likely that the Saints will select an offensive tackle with their first-round selection because they need starters. You can't really address offensive tackle in the 6th round because how many 6th-rounders start? Yeah, you can find Terron Armstead at some point, but you can't count on that. It's possible, but it's unlikely. I know you swung and missed at Trevor Penning. I know you're not over the moon at Cesar Ruiz, who you took in the first round as well, but you probably have to go back to the well and make it happen. So right tackle's a mess. Left tackle, there could be a solution here, and it could be Andrews Pete. But the fact of the matter is that he's a free agent at this point. So Dennis Allen was asked about the possibility of bringing back Andrews Pete, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, I think all things are on the table in terms of how we want to, fill out our roster. And so, there's a business aspect that goes along with all of these, decisions. And so, we'll see.
I don't know that the Saints can try to move money around and plug this hole at left tackle some other way. What I mean to say is there's a business deal and you don't want to overpay for, but the fact of the matter is you don't have a guy. You don't have anyone to play the position. So you need to come to the bargaining table without saying that to Andrews Pete, but say, hey, what looks good? And you need to get that deal done. They need to bring Andrews Pete back. My gut tells me that that's probably not going to happen. Once players hit that unrestricted free agency situation, it's just unlikely that they come right on back. You've got somebody in a restricted free agent situation, or you're the only one that can negotiate while it's still under contract. Yeah, obviously, because you're the only ones coming to the table, your odds go up. Once everybody gets to the table, those odds crash. And I'm not suggesting Andrews Pete is somebody's franchise left tackle they've just got to have. You actually punted on that notion early in his time and just put him out there last year because of necessity. Well, necessity's knocking at the door again. And it just feels like that's something that's got to get done. Here's the deal where I sit when I look at the Saints. And I'll be quite honest with you, personally, I'm more comfortable having a real negative conversation about a team that I'm more emotionally invested in than New Orleans. I'd rather be sunshine and rosy with the Saints, just my disposition, because I feel like I'm kind of attacking you, the Saints fan listener, when I bring some of these things up. That's not my intention. It's not even what I like to do, but I am calling it like I see it. And when I look at the Saints roster, I look at a roster with holes, with a hole at left tackle and a hole now at right tackle very likely, and some depth concerns in a big way at wide receiver, and looking at edge rusher going, and I see all these holes, and then I realize, like, Cam Jordan's going to leave a hole here in the short term. I believe Demario Davis is going to leave a hole here in the short term. Tyrann Mathieu is going to leave a hole here in the short term. Alvin Kamara is going to leave a hole here in the short term. Like, the hole's going to keep popping up. There was a window there where it didn't feel like this. Even right after Breeze walked away, you could still look at the roster and feel okay about it, understanding that the biggest hole was coming, but everything else seemed kind of stable. It just doesn't right now. And I realize that this is not breaking news on Ramczyk, and we should be shocked. It wasn't like he was in some sort of freak accident. Like, we've known he had a degenerative knee issue for years. So it's not shocking, but the tone has changed in 3 weeks. I think anyone can admit to that. And I just don't feel awesome about it looking at it. There is one thing that is abundantly clear in all of this. The New Orleans Saints must draft exceptionally well. If you can get 5 starters out of the next 2 drafts, 7 starters out of the next 2 drafts, all of a sudden, you've accomplished that. But if you keep drafting Trevor Penning and you keep drafting Isaiah Foskey, you can't fix it. You can't. So I didn't have super high hopes for New Orleans this coming fall and still don't. But there's reason to think that it can get fixed. They've just got to draft exceptionally well. We'll see, but a bummer news out of the Saints camp today with Dennis Allen saying they just aren't thrilled with the way that Ryan Ramczyk's knee is coming along. Our Tuesday shows are brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar, Nicholson, just south of campus, small Louisiana, right there on Bluebonnet. I'll be there tonight. Plucker Sports Trivia at 8:30. Hope you can come on out and play some sports trivia. When we come back, I did a little exercise here, and I tailored it back to LSU in terms of where their basketball program is. Where did the players on these rosters for the Sweet 16 come from, and what does that mean for Matt McMahon and how he needs to build his roster? I did about an hour and a half worth of research on it this morning, and I think it's fairly interesting. We'll do that next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. Tell you each and every day about David Duvall and his team. 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. For some, it's a full-scale bathroom renovation. For some, it's just a tub-to-shower conversion. We use our tub every single night because the Myers man takes a bath in there every single night. If you don't have a 2-year-old that's a maniac in the bathtub and never get in that tub, get rid of it. Put in a glass walk-in shower. It's cost-effective. It's not time-intensive. And they can get it done for you at One Bath and Closets. They just take that tub out. They put a glass walk-in shower in. It changes the aesthetic of your bathroom. It changes the functionality of your bathroom. It adds value to your home, and everybody's happy. But you won't know what they can do until you have them out for that free consultation and let David Duvall tell you what he can do in your home. It's OneBathAndClosets.com. You can see testimonials. You can see pictures of their great work. Get that free consultation. OneBathAndClosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge. Dance continues this Thursday night at 6 and Friday night at 6 in the Sweet 16. Then Saturday at 5 p.m. and Sunday at 1 p.m. in the Elite 8. Listen to the 2024 men's basketball tournament right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Glenn West will be along in about 15 minutes talking some LSU. You know, I think, as I've said, that LSU men's basketball is playing sixth fiddle or so around here right now. Certainly football is always going to be king. We've seen LSU baseball and LSU women's basketball win national championships this year. Softball's been awesome. Gymnastics is the SEC champions. And there's a little bit of lack of juice for LSU men's basketball. I think we all realize that. And it's fair. Like, I wish that it was full every time and that everyone was all fired up about it. But this is not realistic. The results haven't matched up to that. And I think we can all agree, whether you're a diehard basketball fan who never misses a game or really only care when they win, that it's more fun around here when the LSU men's basketball program is humming. For those that were around in the 80s, like, that's a lot of fun. For those that got involved with that Final Four team, like, that's a blast. The SEC champs from 19, like, that's really fun around here. And I yearn for those days to come back, and I'm hopeful that they will. But I wanted to do an exercise today that looked at the teams that have reached the Sweet 16, kind of a goal for LSU basketball. I'm not asking to knock on the Final Four's door every year. I'm not asking to hang multiple national championship banners, but the Sweet 16 is a very attainable thing for LSU men's basketball. How did these teams get there in terms of their roster composition? Now, this exercise I did a certain way. I'm not telling you it was a perfect scientific way to get it done, but I did do some work, and I'm going to lay out all the work that I did. I took the teams that have reached the Sweet 16. I took out examples of schools that I don't believe apply to LSU. I don't think analyzing how they have success is relevant. I took out UConn. I took out North Carolina. I took out Duke. I took out Gonzaga. And I took out Arizona. Those 5 teams, I don't believe, swim in the same waters as LSU. Fair or not, like, that's just the way I see it. So what I did was I took the starting 5, and I realized that not the same 5 guys start every single time for every single team, but I took the guys who the majority of the time start for the other 11 teams. San Diego State, Illinois, and I realized some of these programs have better basketball programs than LSU, but I think there's reason that it could be apples to apples. San Diego State, Illinois, Iowa State, Alabama, Clemson, Tennessee, even Houston, who's had far better basketball program than LSU. I don't think that the two schools are wildly different in how they should approach roster composition. LSU doesn't do things the same way as Duke does, but I don't think Houston does either. So I put Houston in there, NC State, Marquette, Purdue. I know Matt Painter's been there a long time, and they're number 1 in the country. You don't really compare them to LSU at this point, but it's a Power 5 school that doesn't have like some sort of massive amount of success in its rear view. I think they apply. And Creighton, 11 teams, 55 starters. How'd they get to the school that they are at? Because we know there's high school recruiting. There's the transfer portal. What does it look like? San Diego State made a hell of a run last year. They're right back in the mix as a 5 seed this year. They're in the Sweet 16. They've got 3 transfer starters from TCU, Oakland, and Southern Cal. They have 2 4-star recruits. You'll see that's a very common way to do this. Illinois, 3 transfers, Texas Tech, Southern Illinois, and Oregon. A 3-star recruit and a 4-star recruit. Those are basically the same. 3 transfers from kind of random schools, a couple of high school kids that we identified. Iowa State. Listen to this. They're transfers. UNLV, Eastern Kentucky, and Denver. They got a 3-star recruit from Ames High School down the street from campus and a 4-star recruit. They're a 2 seed. You know the Bama lineup. Mark Sears came from Ohio. Aaron Estrada is on his 4th school. He went to St. Peter's, Oregon State, and Hofstra. Grant Nelson came from North Dakota State. Latrell Wrightsell came from Cal State Fullerton. The only starter they have from high school is Rylan Griffin, who was a 4-star. That's Bama. That's apples to apples. Big time football school, lots of money, fan base that hadn't necessarily been invested in men's basketball all the time. And it's not like they're going to land guys from Kansas, St. Peter's, Hofstra, North Dakota State, Fullerton. It's just the right guys that you've got to have. Now, Clemson has done it a different way than those schools. Clemson has 2 4-star recruits they developed, 2 3-star recruits they developed, and they got Joe Girard from Syracuse, who visited LSU. He shoots a bunch of threes for them. But they're a 6 seed based mostly on the backs of high school guys they've recruited and developed. Now, I will tell you this, and I didn't chart this, but I looked up every player on this. It's an old group. Not a lot of freshmen, almost no freshman starters, and very few sophomores. It's a lot of juniors, seniors, and 5th years. Now, Tennessee is an outlier here completely because they've got 2 COVID guys on the team. Josiah Jordan-James and Santiago Vescovi were 4-star recruits in 2019. That's a long time ago. Jonas Adey was a 4-star recruit. Zakai Ziegler's a 3-star recruit. They only have 1 transfer in the starting lineup. He happens to be the SEC Player of the Year in Dalton Connect. But again, he came from Northern Colorado. That one's not necessarily as applicable because Santiago Vescovi and Josiah Jordan-James are 25 years old. That's hard to deal with. Houston, how's Kelvin Sampson doing this? Couple of 4-stars, couple of 3-stars, homegrown, 4 of them, and a Baylor transfer. NC State's got 5 transfers. NC State got an 11 seed, so they weren't great. They got 5 transfers in the starting lineup. Arizona State, Winthrop, Butler, Virginia, and Missouri. Here they are in the Sweet 16. Marquette, 4 4-star recruits, homegrown from there. And then a George Mason transfer. Purdue's got a couple 3-star recruits. Now, one of them's the 2-time National Player of the Year who's already got his jersey retired. He's a 3-star recruit, Zach Edey. They got 2 of those, 2 4-stars, went and got a transfer from Southern Illinois. But you'll notice as I start to go through this list, there are more high school guys than I thought. When I started, I was like, oh, yeah, this is rolling up. This is a lot of transfers. But Creighton's got 2 4-star recruits and then 3 transfers from San Diego State, Utah State, and Houston. They're a 3 seed. In total, 11 teams here that I think apply to LSU. 55 starting players. Quick math. 29 are from high school, 26 from the transfer portal. So a few more from high school, but it's about 50-50 high school to transfer portal. But this is interesting. Of the 29 high school recruits, not one of them was a 5-star player. Not one on those groups. Now, UConn, UNC, Duke, Gonzaga, Arizona, I didn't look at them because I don't really care because that doesn't, to me, apply to LSU. They probably got some 5-stars running around out there. But these schools that apply to LSU, you got to add a couple of 4-star recruits, and you got to go get dudes. Some of these transfers came from Houston. Some of these transfers came from Southern Illinois and Winthrop. Some of them came from Northern Colorado. Some came from Texas Tech or Southern Cal. You just have to find the right ones. And honestly, Matt McMahon is kind of following this in his first couple of years. You had Tyrell Ward and Jalen Reed, a 5-star and a 4-star. They're still here 2 years in. Mike Williams, 3-star recruit, 4-star recruit, depends on where you look. If you got that guy for 4 years, well, maybe so. I don't know what Corey Chest is, but you look at this signing class, you've got 2 top 75, 85 players who are 4-star recruits. Now you have to go get the 5 guys, and they've got to be hits. I'm not going to go through the name of the misses that you had in the transfer portal, but you've watched the team for 2 years. You know the guys that can't play in the SEC. You've got to get the guys who can. It's not that tall a task. In college football, you are just about cooked if you can't go out there and lock in a top 12 class in the country. You're not going to be impactful in the postseason if you can't do that. Maybe Ole Miss bucks the system. We'll see. It remains to be seen. But you've got to do a majority of your work the way Georgia and Bama and Ohio State and Clemson do it. In college basketball, you don't. You don't have to pick off the most talented tree. You've got to find the guys that work. And right now, I'll be honest with you, and this is probably unfair. And I will admit it if it proves itself to be unfair. I have a reasonable track record of remembering a lot of things that I say, and trust me, I have no problem coming on the air and tell you I was dead wrong. But I'm going to be a little skeptical if the 3 transfers that LSU brings in here in the next 3 weeks have 225 area cell phones. That's as clear as I can be. Maybe that's unfair. I watched a Final Four team be built on the backs of guys who have 225 area codes. But I'd rather go get guys that are really good or fit the system as opposed to know how to get around campus well because they grew up here. And again, that might be unfair, but it's the way that I feel. I am, generally speaking, going to be a little bit more excited to see transfers of guys from elsewhere and based on their stat sheet as opposed to, well, he's coming home to play. And trust me, look, Jordan Wright had a good year this year. And Jarrett Bernard-Converse was an excellent player for LSU. Kyron Lacey has been very, very good. There are plenty of guys who have come back home from being elsewhere that have been productive players for LSU across the landscape of sports. But that's just probably a skeptical point of view for me now. Matt McMahon's got to do this with roster composition, and it's got to be done with a couple, 3, 4, 5 stars a year and the right transfers from wherever you can find them in the country. Because you're not locked in anymore, I think there's a likelihood that guys are a little more open to traveling to a part of the country they have not been to try to play for a year, too. Maybe that's completely made up, too, but it just feels that way. If you were going to be locked in and if you were going to go somewhere that was far away and then not really like it, and you'd have to sit out a year if you were going to leave, maybe you're hesitant to make that leap and take that jump and go have that experience. Now that you can transfer whenever you want, maybe you're a little more open to spending 1 year in Louisiana if you're from Brooklyn or LA or northern Colorado like Dalton Connect. We'll see. We all know it's about roster composition, and Matt McMahon's got to get on it right now. I just thought it'd be interesting to kind of go through where these guys come from, and it seems attainable for LSU. We'll see if he can get it done. Tuesday show is brought to you by Pluckers. Get on by Breggie's Creole Crush, new wing sauce that's brought in from Alex Bregman, former Tiger and current Houston Astro. It's really, really tasty. Get on by either location here in Baton Rouge and give it a try. When we come back, Glenn West, go 24/7 talking Tigers on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
ESPN Bet is ready to take you through all the huge sports moments this spring. The exclusive sportsbook of ESPN has it all, including exclusive offers and promotions from Scott Van Pelt and Stephen A. Smith. From the playoff intensity to getting on the links and out to the ballpark, there's no better time to be a sports fan. You can sign up today, and new users get $100 in bonus bets for making any sportsbook bet. Download ESPN Bet today. What a play. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with LeBears Lake Charles. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
On Wednesday's OTB, how did the Bad News Birds fare in their fight against the Thunder? Plus, did baseball right the ship ahead of their trip to Fayetteville? We got a brand new hour of flustering, and Hold the Mayo stops by. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Moving right along here on this Tuesday. It's that time of the week that we head out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline and chat with our guy Glenn West, senior writer at Go 24/7. Lots going on in LSU sports land. We'll bring on Glenn to talk about all of it. Glenn, how are you?
I'm doing great, son. Hunt. Yeah, just lots to talk about for sure.
Plenty to talk about. Let's start with football. Y'all were able to see some practice this week, as well as do some interviews. I'm curious your impressions of Garrett Nussmeier through this point of spring.
Yeah, I mean he's been okay. You know, I mean, I'm sure most people have seen the reports, the practice reports that came out of Saturday that he was picked off 3 times by Sage Ryan. But you know, I do think that wind, weather conditions had a factor in a couple of those plays. But look, I love the way that Garrett's been carrying himself. We got a chance to talk to him last week, and you just get the sense, man, this guy knows what opportunities ahead of him. He knows, the best way to get the most out of this offense with his skill set. And they're working through a lot of that stuff right now in spring. You know, they've really been diversifying the run game. That's where they spent a good chunk of time these first 7 practices. They've been putting them under center a little bit as well. So yeah, they're working through a lot of things, but I think the one area that you won't be able to that Nussmeier is not lacking in, I should say, is confidence and leadership, and I think those are all really great tools to kind of get the offense going here in the spring.
Have you gotten to read at all on the wide receiver position and how things are progressing there? They got a lot of guys, but I just don't know how any of them stack up.
Yeah, so Kelly told us, as recently as this past weekend, and they have as many as 7 that they feel like they can roll out there at this point in time. I mean, it's pretty consistently, it's been Kyron Lacey, Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson running with the first team. Kyle Parker's been subbing in a little bit as well with the first team. And then Xavion Thomas and CJ Daniels have been pretty much the second teamers. So, the transfers, I don't think that's to be unexpected. I mean, these transfers are still, picking up the offense, and, a lot of these guys that, are returning have that experience and kind of the understanding of the playbook. But I do think it's noteworthy that, guys like Hilton are getting targeted a lot. Kyron Lacey made a phenomenal play this past Saturday on a deep ball. He just kind of jumped over Jordan Gilbert and hauled in a big 50-yard touchdown bomb from Nuss. So those guys are all contributing. They're spreading the ball around, and I think it's been a good start for the receiver room.
You think Kyron Lacey is an SEC number 1?
I just don't know if this team's going to have a number 1, to be honest with you. I do think that there's, a lot of, thought to put into here about just them spreading the ball around. And, it kind of gives you the feel of maybe 2018. Maybe that's kind of the last time I can remember where, Jefferson kind of led them in receiving yards that year under Burrow, but there was also a bunch of other guys contributing with that team as well. So I do think that I don't know that you're going to see a Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas duo really kind of ascend and get, 85, 90% of the volume targets. But Lacey absolutely is somebody that's going to have to figure in, be a deep play threat for him, be more consistent in the intermediate routes as well. But I do think he's somebody that, they're obviously going to lean on heavily this season.
Kyle Parker was maybe not the most sought-after wide receiver in that signing class. Jaylen Brown and his speed, he's now moved on. Shelton Sampson, of course, from right here in Baton Rouge. But I've heard some buzz about him through the spring. Yeah. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, he's looked good. I mean, he's fit, man. I mean, he's very athletic. He kind of is just I don't want to say stocky, but he's well fit to be a receiver, and he's strong. I think he's got some athletic perception that maybe in his route running that will really be able to benefit him this season. I didn't see a whole ton of him in terms of making plays this past Saturday, but I know that he's been pretty consistent for him, and there's a lot of buzz around what he could be able to do with this offense this year, and I think he's another weapon that they're absolutely going to give a lot of targets to and see if he can't make something happen with him.
I mean, how many running backs do you even recognize out there?
2. Well, I would say 3. Malachi Lane has been a walk-on kind of guy for the last couple of years, number 30. He's been, getting some second-team reps as well. But they've been pretty consistently rolling out Josh Williams with the first team. Caleb Jackson's rotating in a little bit as well. But those 2 are getting the bulk of the carries this spring, and I think that's a good thing for those 2 guys. You don't want to overdo it because they do have a couple of guys coming in with Caden Durham, and we'll see if they maybe look into the portal this after this spring to maybe bring in somebody else to fill that room out. But they've got about 5 or 6 walk-ons in there that have been really helping, and I think that's a good thing as well.
Is there a feeling on the backup quarterback race? A.J. Swan comes in, Ricky Collins already here. So what do you think about that?
I've heard a lot of great things about Ricky Collins and his development here in year 2. He was a guy that spent a ton of time last year with Jaden Daniels, in the early morning meeting rooms. I've heard he's picked up a lot of the offense. He knows what he's supposed to be doing out there now, and I think it's really just about him playing, more free. And now that he has an understanding of the offense, I do think that he's somebody that's really going to be pushing Swan for that backup role. I mean, I do think there was kind of a train of thought coming in that this would be kind of Swan's job to lose in terms of backup. But, I do think that Collins is going to make this a very interesting kind of race to going into the fall.
All right, let's talk a little baseball. Obviously,
really?
not the start that LSU was looking for to get off to an SEC play. Where's your concern level?
I'm probably down the middle. I'm not gonna overreact to the first couple weekends because I do think that there's you lost your top 7 hitters from last year, and there's some growing pains that a lot of these guys that are being thrust into bigger roles that you're gonna have to just wait and see if they can come along. But I do think probably one of the more concerning areas for me was the bullpen pitching. I do think you got a really great outing out of Griffin Herring on Friday. But really after that, very much a mixed bag, especially on Sunday. Jay Johnson told us after the Sunday game, those last 4 innings were as disappointed as he's been in a long time, as a coach. So they've got some work to do, and I think this is a team that's still finding its identity to some degree in all aspects. And I think the other part here is that they were really 1 pitch, 1 out away from winning that series against Florida. And, that for, I would say, the first 16, 17 innings of that series, they outplayed them. But, the last, 11, 12, it was very much a different story. So which team can we see on a more consistent basis? I think consistency is the name of the game with this group right now, and we just haven't seen it on a day-in, day-out basis yet.
You mentioned the bullpen. Fidel Ulloa, 1 SEC inning. Does that surprise you?
It does, because, Fidel was somebody that they leaned on heavily in Houston. They leaned on him heavily throughout the entire non-conference. That's a good question for Jay if we get a chance to talk to him before they head out. But I expected Fidel to be a huge, huge part of the bullpen, and they haven't really utilized him yet in the way that I thought they might. So it's a great question. I think he's got the stuff. We'll see if he can, kind of work his way back into the consistent, being a consistent part of the bullpen. But he's somebody that I think after the weekend they just had, you definitely look at and give him a few more opportunities here going forward.
The outfield is interesting, with Kling scuffling, with Brown hurt, with Larson being so young, Bingham kind of struggling on defense. Like, where are you with the outfield right now?
Yeah, it's tough. I think you have to have Mac Bingham in there. I think, somebody that is deserving of opportunities is going to be Ethan Fry going forward. You can't really work him in the DH role if you've got Hayden Travinsky there. So I think he's somebody that you might have to ask to step up out there in right field. As far as center field is concerned, I think you have to continue to ride it out with Paxton and hope that he can get it going, because he's clearly the best defensive outfielder on this team. Probably one of the better defensive outfielders in the SEC. So if you can, find something with him at the plate. If he can find a little bit of confidence at the plate, then I think he's somebody you kind of have to roll with here going forward.
A little bit of an interesting situation here for LSU. You lose a day of rest because you're playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we know what's coming Thursday on the mound for Arkansas. How would you handle the pitching rotation?
Yeah, you and I texted about it a little bit after the game on Sunday. I think they'll probably pitch Holman on 6 days rest. I think that's probably the most likely scenario to happen. I know something that we toyed with, you and I, just going back and forth, was maybe flipping that and maybe throwing Cade Anderson on a Thursday and then maybe going Holman jump on Friday, Saturday. I think that would make some sense, but I just don't know if they're ready to go that route yet. I do think they'll probably stick with what they've been doing here these first couple weeks.
We shall see. Appreciate the time, Glenn. We'll talk next week.
All right, Hunt. Thank you.
He's Glenn West, senior writer over at Go 24/7. It's an interesting thought because if you were to throw Anderson on Thursday, you put yourself at a massive disadvantage in the Thursday game, and you're very likely going to fall at that point to 2-5 in league play. But then all of a sudden, you've got Luke Holman against Brady Tigert, which you feel pretty good about, and you've got Gage Jump against Mason Molina, and you've got Thatcher Hurd out of the bullpen maybe for a 2 or 3 inning stint, which might be advantageous for him and the team. If you're talking about odds of winning the series, I think they favor you going that way, so you don't waste Luke Holman going 6 innings, 9 strikeouts, 2 runs allowed, and you get shut down by Hagen Smith and you lose the game. It's a thought. I don't think Jay is going to run the white flag up that quickly, because that's essentially what it is. I've seen teams do it with Paul Skeens. I've seen teams do it with Aaron Nola. Hagen Smith is in that class right now, but I just don't think AJ is going to push that button. We'll see. Take a timeout, close out hour number 1 next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Platinum Window Tint. PlatinumWindowTintLLC.com is the website. So much on that website. You can learn about Platinum Window Tint. You can see some of the services that they offer. You can request a quote. It's all right there on the website, PlatinumWindowTintLLC.com. I want to tell you about the ceramic coating that they offer for your vehicle. South Louisiana can be tough on vehicles. We know that. But they've got this ceramic coating that's hydrophobic. It repels water and other harsh road contaminants like grime, bird droppings, chemicals, and stains. It's scratch resistant, which creates a diamond-like hardness, and it resists some minor-like scratches. It's stain-proof. Protect you against some harsh water, tree sap, bird droppings. Plus, it looks really good on the car. It enhances the gloss as well. So, the car is one of the biggest investments we have, generally speaking. If you want to protect that, they can offer ceramic coatings over there at Platinum Window Tint. Check it out online, PlatinumWindowTintLLC.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Tigers back on the practice field. We'll get you a practice report. Shay Dixon talks recruiting. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
So wrapping up hour number 1 here, I want to talk about the new kickoff rules in the NFL. If you have not seen this, it's been pretty polarizing online, and I've got my thoughts for sure on it. The new rules that will be put in place this year have changed the kickoff drastically. You're still going to kick off from the same place. They're not moving the football there. But the coverage team is going to be able to stand, the other 10 members of the coverage team is going to be able to stand on the 40-yard line. And they'll be lined up right there on the 40, ready to go. And 5 yards away from them at the 35 will be the blocking team, which will presumably have 9 or 10 players there. Those players can't move until the return team fields the ball or it lands between the 20 and the goal line. Point here is you don't have gunners, you don't have guys running down there full speed, you don't have guys building a wall to return and the wedge and all that kind of stuff, all these violent collisions. What you've got is basically a snap of a football and everybody firing off from 5 yards apart from each other, which just lessens the severity of the collisions. They're doing this because only 5.2%, there were only about 1 to 2 returns per game last year. You just weren't returning kickoffs. They were getting kicked out of the back of the end zone. They want to change that. And they're doing a couple of things to make sure that you don't just kick it out of the back of the end zone. One, they move touchbacks up to the 30-yard line. So this is a big difference from the 20 and in college the 25. They want returns in the game. They just don't want the violence of it. And I'm completely for that. The XFL has used some kind of trickeration and some return plays that have worked a little bit better. You can use 2 return guys. They did some reverses that worked really well. There's a little bit more strategy that goes into some of that. And I'm all for it. I want to see kickoff returns. I think they're fun. I think going to NFL games and having every kickoff kicked out of the back of the end zone takes a really exciting play out of the game. But it's a dangerous play, and I think they've mitigated that. Now, there are some people that are furious about the onside rules because this obviously takes away your ability to do a surprise onside kick. Guess how many surprise onside kicks were recovered last year? 2. 2 in 17 weeks of games. I realize that one of the great all-time memories in Saints history is ambush out of the second half of the Super Bowl. But it's a play that never happens. You know what does happen? Kickoffs. So let's make those better. They've helped out the recovering team on surprise onsides, and they're going to try to create a little bit more competition in those. But it's not really my concern. My concern is the thing that happens more often, is the thing that it's kickoffs. And if this is going to make teams kick off in play, lessen injuries, and create some excitement on kickoff returns, I love it. And if the casualty of that decision is that we can't do surprise onside kicks, which worked twice last year in 17 games, I'll think I'll live. Surprise onside kick, kind of fun too, but it's a fluke play. We don't see it. So I am for this. I think it's great. And I'm excited to see it implemented. I think that's one of the cool things about the XFL. I don't know that it's ever going to catch on from the perspective of fans being addicted to it and television ratings and all that kind of stuff. But they were able to try some things. And I think this is one of the things that may work. Beck, do you have any thoughts on changing the kickoff situation around?
Yeah, I think the NFL we're at a position where either they need to just get rid of kickoffs altogether, or change it like this to where it actually is a play that factors into the game. Whereas last year, most of the time, I don't wonder what percentage it was, but I would guess at least 70 to 80% of kickoffs were touchbacks. So I think this is a good move.
Yeah, teams were returning about 1.1 kickoff per game. So well, it depends on the game, but you kick off 6 times in a game. That's pretty fair. 5 of them out of the back of the end zone,
Yeah.
one being returned. I'm all for this. Mr. Kitchens, do you have any thoughts on changing the kickoff rules?
All I gotta say about that is I'm intrigued by it's like you have to get into the zone. You can't do no more touchbacks.
If you kick it out of the back of the end zone, they get it at the 30.
Yeah,
touchbacks are to the 30.
That's crucial. That's crucial.
Yeah.
So that's gonna make it very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think it's good. I'm for it. I want guys run. I want kickoff returns for a touchdown brought back into the game, and they just don't really exist. Huge plays on kickoffs just don't exist. And I think having an elite return man is a great piece to a roster, and you should benefit from that. Not having the guy having to take it out from 9 yards deep when he's running. That's not advantageous for anybody. So I like it. I think it's a good thing that the NFL has done. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that this year. Our Tuesday show is brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar, Breggie's Creole Crush. Get that new sauce, Nicholson location just south of LSU's campus, or a Blue Bonnet in front of the Mall of Louisiana. If you missed any of our first hour, catch it on demand anywhere you catch your podcast, or of course on YouTube. We'll take a timeout for Sports Center. Brian Kelly sound. When we come back, we'll hear from Jay Johnson as well. And at the bottom of the hour, it's Sharif Aisha. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
Center.
I'm Christine Lisi. A massive revamp of the kickoff approved today by NFL owners. Among the tweaks, other than the kicker and returner, no players on the kickoff or receiving teams can move until the ball hits the ground or a player inside the landing zone. No fair catches or surprise onside kicks are allowed. Changes intended to increase return rates and minimize high-speed collisions. ESPN NFL analyst Bart Scott.
It's going to be hard to strategically figure out how to get that momentum up. It's going to limit maybe guys, from making big collisions. But, the special team coaches are really innovative. They'll do some things like find out ways how to pull guys, not block the backside, and it maybe brings something exciting. It puts emphasis on 1/3 of the game that sometimes often gets overlooked.
Owners also approved allowing teams to elevate a quarterback from the practice squad to the active roster unlimited times to serve as the emergency QB. NFL plans to play 2 games on Christmas this year, despite the holiday being on a Wednesday. Teams to be determined. NBA, the Lakers' LeBron James, lingering left ankle soreness, out tonight against the Bucks.
Hey, it's Michelle Smallman. Coming up Wednesday with the Major League Baseball season about to get going, I'll tell you which on-field storylines you should be paying attention to. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hunt Palmer Show on this Tuesday, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. Lots to do in hour number 2. We'll hear some sound from Jay Johnson's Coaches Show coming up in 15 minutes. Some really great stuff with the New Orleans Pelicans. Sharif will talk about that at 2:30. We'll also get his thoughts on some of the Saints news of the day as well. If you missed some of my thoughts on Saints, we led the show with that about an hour ago. And Ryan Ramczyk potentially not being available for the New Orleans Saints kind of came up front and center there, and it's not great news there for the folks in the black and gold. Speaking of football, Brian Kelly and his team deep into spring football at this point, had that 1 week off for spring break, but trying to get something accomplished in these 15 practices before the National L Club spring game. And he met with the media yesterday and had some things to say specifically about the defense that I found quite interesting. One is he just talked about the identity of the team, and that's something that you kind of try to get established in this 3-4 week period of spring football. What is the identity of this group, and is it starting to show?
The identity is starting to kind of show itself. I think, this is going to be much more that the sum is going to be greater than any one of the parts of this team, which is great. I think that there's going to be a lot of players that will play and take an important role in the team, but we're going to need everybody.
That's an interesting way to go about it. LSU is a football program that has certainly been built with a lot of stars. Now, a lot of depth, too. You got to have that to win in football. There's no question about that. You can't have 2 guys lead you to the promised land like you potentially could in basketball. But you got to have a full roster. But they've had a lot of stars. And Joe Burrow's a star. Jamar Chase is a star. Last year, all 3 of your offensive weapons were absolute stars. And Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas, and Malik Neighbors. Household names. It's hard to identify that guy on this team. Would it be shocking if Garrett Nussmeier or Caleb Jackson morphed into that? Would it be shocking if Harold Perkins became a first-team All-American and won the Butkus Award? Probably not. But right now, it'd be tough to pinpoint that. I mean, your best player might be your left tackle, and that's not exactly what draws the headlines out at this point. So I get that. There are a lot of really good players in this team, but I don't know if you're not going to have a lot of preseason first-team All-Americans. Campbell and Jones, potentially, and maybe Harold Perkins on name recognition, not necessarily on production from last year. But there's no Tyrann Mathieu or Morris Claiborne or Patrick Peterson or Derek Stingley in the secondary right now. You don't have proven commodities in terms of star power at wide receiver. I mean, Malik Neighbors last year was coming off a 1,000-yard season. So I think that's interesting that he would think that this is more of a sum of its parts deal than a team that's got a ton of star power. I want to talk defense a little bit, and Major Burns has been around a long time, but potentially playing the star position this spring.
The star gives you a lot more, I would say, versatility within your defensive structure. A guy that can play man coverage, a guy that can blitz, a guy that can play zone coverage, a really good tackler, athletic in space, but also, a guy that's rugged enough that, if you put a tight end, he can handle himself at the line of scrimmage. We felt like, Major, really fit that mold in terms of the star. He's closer to the football, and he has those skills that we were looking for.
I often say that quotes are a little more impactful than practice reports, especially in the spring. Somebody rolls their ankle in the spring, that's just not that big a deal. It might be a big deal if we're out there in fall camp and they roll their ankle 11 days before the not Florida State this time around, USC game. And everything kind of looks the same outside of some injuries in spring ball. But with the quotes, if guys are moving or trying something different, you find that out. And if you're going to move Major Burns closer to the football, closer to the line of scrimmage, dealing with some tight ends, doing some blitzing, you got to have somebody go back and play the level where he's spent most of the last 2 years, and that's back at safety. Sage Ryan would make a lot of sense there.
Sage obviously is a guy that we moved around all over trying to find a spot for him. He's got speed, he's got athleticism. Obviously, that was a position that needed some depth, and he provides obviously that experience that was lacking at that position.
Look, Sage has been around a long time, and has been on a couple defenses that haven't been great, but I don't think that's necessarily all of his fault. He is very versatile. They've asked him to play some nickel. They've asked him to play some dime. They've asked him to play some safety. At times, he had to go out there and play corner because he didn't really have anybody else. And he's never batted an eye at any of that. Now, he did dip his toe into the transfer portal waters and then decide, I think I'll come on back. But he's back now, and I think you can find that he's committed to what they're trying to do. It sounds like they're going to try him out at safety. But in any event, there's going to be a pretty heavy rotation at corner because there's just a lot of dudes that don't necessarily have a defined role yet. So Kelly talked to the rotation that you're going to see in the defensive backfield.
As I said, I think the sum is going to be, much more about what this team is than any one individual. I don't know that there's going to be one corner. I think it's going to be 2 or 3 corners at a particular position. I don't know there's going to be one safety. I think it's going to be 2 or 3. So I think you're going to just see a lot of guys that are going to be competing and helping us instead of, it's just one star at one position, one superstar. And I think that's a good thing.
Can I be completely honest with you, the listener? I'm just going to be very honest. I have very little idea of what to make of LSU's defensive backfield. Where they're going to play, who's going to play, in what order, how well they'll play. I have very little concrete information on that. I got guys coming back from various injuries. I got transfers coming in. I got guys moving positions. I don't know. I'm not going to try to sit here and rattle off the names and tell you this guy's going to be here and this guy's going to be there and this. I don't know. It's March. They're not short on depth. They might be short on talent. They might not be. I don't know. I feel pretty comfortable telling you that Major Burns and Sage Ryan are going to be out there pretty quickly. I could guess at some other stuff. I got asked on Chuck Oliver's show yesterday, who's the number 1 corner? I don't know. I think there's a chance it's Zy Alexander. I think there's a chance it's Ashton Stamps. I don't think it's Javian Toviano, but it could be either Ohio State transfer. I don't know. I wish I could be a little more... it's not even that it's lack of effort or lack of research or lack of knowledge. I know all the guys. I just don't know anything about them. I'm not going to judge Ashton Stamps and Javian Toviano for playing as true freshmen on a defense that never stopped anybody all year. I don't know how healthy Zy Alexander is. I don't know what the 2 Ohio State transfers can do. I feel a little anxious about it, but I can't give you a firm opinion on it either way. I do know that you can help your secondary if you rush the passer. And while you're looking for some proven pieces on the inside, you do have some potentially exciting options on the outside. They just have to grow into that. And I think Deshaun Womack is one of those guys. And Brian Kelly was asked about Deshaun Womack and gave his thoughts on the second-year player.
You know, the maturity level of Deshaun Womack, the health of Deshaun Womack. Remember now, he wasn't part of spring and then, had shoulder surgery and was coming off of shoulder surgery. And I just think in the weight room, physically developing, having a year to kind of understand what it takes to be in college has put him in a really good position. He's got a chance to be an elite pass rusher.
I'll drag this back to baseball very briefly, but you'll get the reference here. The biggest jumps for guys need to be between freshman and sophomore year. You needed that from Jared Jones and Brady Neal and Paxton Kling and Ethan Fry. And you've seen kind of the results over there. The same thing applies for Deshaun Womack. I'm not asking you to show up on campus and be a terror off the edge. That's a lot to ask. I am going to ask you, as a guy who was that highly recruited, had that many scholarship offers, that has been now in the program for a year, to show up as a sophomore and be very difficult to block. If LSU is going to make strides on defense, it's going to be largely due to some development. A lot of the same guys are going to play this year. They've got to play better. Now, Deshaun Womack didn't play that much last year, but he's got to be better than he was last year for this LSU defense to reach the level it needs to reach. I'm excited to see it. Certainly not doubting that at all. And hopefully he becomes a really, really good pass rusher over the next 5 months before they go to Las Vegas to play USC. That's it for LSU football today. A little bit of Brian Kelly sound. We'll shift gears over to baseball. Jay Johnson had his coach's show last night. What did he have to say? We'll tell you next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
ESPN Bet, ready to take you through the huge moments this spring. The exclusive sportsbook of ESPN has it all, including exclusive offers from promotions from Scott Van Pelt and Stephen A. Smith. From playoff intensity to getting to the links and out to the ballpark, there's no better time to be a sports fan. Sign up today and new users get $100 in bonus bets for making any sportsbook bet. You heard that right. You sign up for ESPN Bet, you make any bet on the app, you get $100 to bet with right there in your account. Download ESPN Bet today. What a play. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. In partnership with the Bears Lake Charles. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com. Dance continues this Thursday night at 6 and Friday night at 6 in the Sweet 16. Then Saturday at 5 p.m. and Sunday at 1 p.m. in the Elite 8. Listen to the 2024 men's basketball tournament right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
See where you stand on the leaderboard for the $1 million bracket challenge powered by Acura of Baton Rouge and Coors Light at 1045ESPN.com. First place will win $2,024 in cash, and second place will get a 75-inch TV and soundbar. Third place will get a 2-night stay at the Beau Rivage. Unfortunately, Jimmy Ott, you are not eligible for that. It's the $1 million bracket challenge powered by Acura of Baton Rouge and Coors Light.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Jay Johnson Coach's Show was last night. Busy week for LSU as they'll have Southeastern tonight at 6:30. Then you'll see the trip to Fayetteville tomorrow, and they will start that series Thursday, Friday, Saturday here on Easter weekend against the number one team in the country. So no rest for the tired or the weary. A couple of sound bites from Jay Johnson last night. The first, and it's a little bit of a longer cut, but he talked about the ejection of his over the weekend.
It's Florida and LSU. Rematch of the finals in the College World Series. They have a great program. We have a great program. You know, the players were intense. Think about if you're Jack Caglione and how the College World Series finals ended last year. You think this series was super important to him? I probably do. Jared Jones is one of the most competitive human beings in the world. He hits a homer, and I didn't even see what happened. Apparently there were some words said. So then they stopped the game. The umpire came over and said, hey, we're issuing unsportsmanlike warning for both teams. And I literally was like, well, what happened? And so he explained to me what happened. I was like, okay, well, I appreciate you doing it and, you know, both sides, and that's great. Well, then 45 seconds later, like, he struck out Travinsky and popped off to him. And I'm like, there's no point in offering a warning if you're not going to eject the guy. And, yeah, I wanted him out of the game because that was probably going to give us a better chance to come back in the game if number 14 wasn't pitching for the other team. And so my thing was like, that's completely bad to issue a warning, ask me to come out and tell me you're issuing a warning, then the opposing player immediately has an unsportsmanlike thing and you don't do anything about it. And so at that point, we needed something. So I basically, you know, showed my displeasure of with the umpiring crew for not following through. And then, you know, from there, thank you. From there, you know, I went back and I was watching the game on TV back in our office area, and, you know, it just didn't have any response from our team. So I will not get ejected.
Look, I think everything makes sense here. The umpire issued the warning because that's been a point of emphasis for them. They've been told to do it. I don't love it. I'm okay with a little jawing here and there. I'm okay with flipping a bat here or there. I'm okay with the pitcher saying something after a strikeout like that. That's okay with me. It's sports. Talked about it yesterday. But he issues the warning because, hey, that's what the NCAA has told us to do. Okay. Then Caglione does say something after the strikeout of Stravinsky, and they didn't do anything about it. I'm personally anti-kicking people out of the game. Jack Caglione should be in the game against Florida. If he charges the mound with a bat on somebody, maybe kick him out of the game. If he says, like, sit down after a strikeout, I'm not really in on throwing people out of the game. However, the NCAA has made this a point of emphasis. I went nuts on this yesterday with the Georgia kid getting ejected after the walk-off grand slam. But there's a little more context here to Jay's reaction. One, he's truthful in what he's saying, that you did issue the warning and you didn't kick him out. Two, he's truthful in saying I wanted him out of the game. And three, something he didn't say, but something that I think is probably true, is he was probably frustrated. He said yesterday how tough Saturday night was for him after that lost game. And over the course of 56, like, you're going to have a couple like that where you think you got it won, you're down to the last pitch, and you don't finish it. But I think he was probably frustrated. He'd just given up a 6th spot, and that's hard to deal with, knowing that the weekend's slipping away from you. And I think all of that bubbling up, the warning that didn't trigger a reaction when Caglione did it, the score of the game, the fact that he thought they needed to fire the team up, like, all that adds up to him going out there and getting tossed. Won't happen again because of the home run derby that ensued after he left the dugout. So it was a tough weekend. Jay talked about how he coaches a team after they go through a tough weekend.
A lot of people think about coaching as talking and giving speeches, but for me, it's modeling. Like if I want our players to be more mentally tough, then I have to be more mentally tough. If I want them to have better emotional control, then I have to exhibit that thing. If I want them to be more competitive, then I have to be. If I want them to be prepared, then I have to be. So that's usually the way I take it, and really have tried to pride myself over 20 plus years of, when you have a difficult game, difficult weekend, difficult stretch, that's when I do my best work, and that's what I intend on doing this week.
It's not going to surprise me if LSU loses in Fayetteville, loses the weekend series. That's not going to shock me. It'll surprise me if LSU doesn't come out playing with intensity, fire, and playing pretty well. That will surprise me. I think you've got a group of guys in that locker room that are proud. You've got a group of guys that are pretty tough, and you got a group of guys that are really talented. And I realize that the fan base is in a little bit of a sensitive spot right now because you don't love the fact that you've lost the first 2 weekends and you're going to play the number one team in the country with the best arm in the country staring right down your barrel. But these guys don't necessarily think like that. And it's so early. They're not going to be defeated or anything. They're going to be fired up and ready to go. And I'm excited to watch them play over the weekend against Arkansas, but also tonight against Southeastern. And Jay talked about getting ready for this Lions team that gave LSU all it wanted back in Hammond last month.
Taking really quality at bats, not swinging at balls, hitting mistakes, battling with 2 strikes, moving the ball with runners on base, running the bases smart and aggressive, playing good defense, and pitching. Like I said, I think there's some guys with some talent that are, poised to take a step forward in terms of their standing on the team. I think we had a promising outing out of a lot of those guys last week against a good team, and we're going to need them to do that tomorrow to have success in the game.
That's interesting because this is specifically speaking to Fidel Ulloa. This is specifically speaking about Cam Johnson, specifically speaking about Aiden Moffitt, some of the guys down the line. To me, we know that Jay trusts Ackenhausen implicitly. For him to go over 70 pitches to see Caglione a third time on Saturday night, like Ackenhausen's a dude that he's going to go to. We know Gavin Guidry is the exact same way. And Griffin Herring has now built himself into that, whether he was on opening day or not, he is now. Those 3 dudes, Jay trusts absolutely. The rest of the guys have got to come on and give 5 or 6 more options here. You've got to have Ulloa. You've got to have Lore. If you can get Moffitt or Johnson to compete in the strike zone, that stuff is outstanding and can absolutely get outs. Cade Anderson has got to be relied on to get some outs as well. You're going to have all those guys help because right now you've got an ace who's going in game 1s. You've got a number 2 who's already over the most innings he's ever thrown in a season, and we'll see if he builds up into a guy who's going to get you 6 2/3, 7 innings most times out, or he's more of a 5 2/3 type guy. And then you've got Thatcher Hurd, who right now feels like a 4-inning guy. There are a lot of outs to be accounted for, and I'm not necessarily talking about what goes on tonight at the box against Southeastern. I am talking about what's going on Sundays right now where you're getting run ruled on back-to-back weekends because you run out of pitching. They've got to find the depth in this staff. The talent is not an issue. I don't have to question Fidel Ulloa's talent. I don't have to question Cam Johnson's talent. I don't have to question Aiden Moffitt's talent. Even guys like DJ Primo and some of those guys, like they throw in the low 90s. They throw a good breaking ball. Justin Lore needs to be a guy that LSU can trust against left-handed hitters. And right now it feels like you're using your dudes. And once that's done, because Herring threw 3 innings on Friday, and then Guidry came in a big spot on Saturday and got out of it, and then Ackenhausen came in after that, and there's your 3 guys. And then after that, I don't know that Jay felt real comfortable with that, so he kept Ackenhausen out there. I didn't hate the move, but the fact is that some of these guys have got to step up and be trusted. And it starts with getting the opportunity to do that. So tonight, I don't know who they're going to start. I don't know if Javen's ready to go back. He pitched on Sunday. I don't know if they want to throw Cade Anderson out there or if they want to hold him for Arkansas. Like, I'm not sure. how they're going to play it. I feel like you're probably going to see 5, 6, 7 guys, and I just like to see a lot of competitive strikes against a pretty solid Southeastern team. That's, I think, huge for LSU in this game tonight. Baseball breakdowns all season long are brought to you by Pluckers Wing Bar. Our Tuesday shows are brought to you by Pluckers Wing Bar. Get on by and watch the game tonight if you're not going. Both Pluckers will have it on, Bluebonnet and Nicholson, and they have every single LSU game that's streaming on right there on their televisions. And they got fantastic jumbo chicken wings and ice-cold draft beer, and they got sports trivia tonight. So if you're going to the game, that's great. You can leave the game when it's over and come play some sports trivia with us. If you'd rather play some sports trivia while watching the game, you can do that as well. We start up at 8:30 with sports trivia. It's 5 rounds, live action trivia. You can win gift cards, drink awesome beer, eat some awesome wings. We always have a good time on Tuesdays with our friends over at Pluckers, the Nicholson location. We'll have you out of there by 10 o'clock tonight. Let's take a time out. When we come back, Sharif Ishak on the Saints and Pels, the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electric. Certified Generac generator dealer. Premier Generac generator dealer. I can promise you this when you contact the folks at Boudreaux's. It's going to be an incredibly efficient process. They're going to send out an employee. They're going to survey your home, figure out what you need, and they're going to get you into the right generator, because not all generators are created exactly equally. Depends on your square footage, what you want powered if the power fails. Some folks want the whole house roaring. You can get that done. Some folks, just keep it cool, make sure the AC is running. I might like a TV too. That's fine too. They can do it for you. But you got to know what you want, and then they'll have a full-time Boudreaux's Electric employee come out to install the generator using the highest quality in piping and wiring, and they're going to do most of that installation underground so that it's aesthetically pleasing and functional when the power goes out down here in South Louisiana. Give them a call at 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. That's my friends at Boudreaux's Electric.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
On Wednesday's OTB, how did the Bad News Birds fare in their fight against the Thunder? Plus, did baseball right the ship ahead of their trip to Fayetteville? We got a brand new hour of flustering, and Hold the Mayo stops by. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Moving right along here on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Let's go down to the 504. That's where we find our guy Sharif Ishak from WDSU, talking all things Saints and Pels. Sharif, how are you?
I'm good. As good as I could be.
Would you like to talk about the Saints or would you like to talk about the Pelicans?
Let's reverse it today. I know Dennis Allen talked. You know what? I'll let you start however you want. One team is going in the right direction. The other team is not going in the right direction.
That is correct. All right, let's start with the Pels, who are going in the right direction. Look, not good news that BI goes down, but it hasn't slowed them down.
Yeah, they're now 6-2 without Brandon Ingram this season. Short term, it might be fine because you see Zion playing at an excellent level, playing good defense, and he's able to space the floor and starting to create his own shots a lot more on a consistent basis. And, you see in the times that Brendan Ingram has been out, CJ McCollum has elevated his game a bit, and he did it against the Heat, did it against the Pistons. So you're starting to see some of the other guys starting to step up, as cliche as it sounds. You get guys off the bench like Larry and Jose, and it's good for the short term, I think. Long term, they're going to need him, especially when they get into the playoffs, because of his ability to actually, be a good playmaker, create his own shot, and he's also excelled in his defense this season. And it's good to see that guys can step up while he's out, but they're going to definitely need him back in the near future before the playoffs start.
Why are they so good on the road and comparatively not as good at home? Is there anything that y'all have been able to unearth there?
I think they get asked that question a lot, and it's that they just can't figure it out. I guess maybe it's less pressure. They think that they, to have 24 wins. I think the only other team that has more is the Boston Celtics. I'd say that's pretty good. I mean, but having 20 at home is good too. Unfortunately, I think that's just too many losses to me. 20-13 at home isn't the greatest record in the world. That they, there's some games that they blew against Memphis that they probably shouldn't have blown. In the Houston Rockets, there was a game there. So, but they make up for it on the road. So they're going to be really tested when they go into the playoffs if they're that good on the road.
What's the latest on BI? We just got to wait 2 weeks and then find out.
Yeah, he got hurt. Is that last? Was that Thursday? So a week from Thursday, we'll probably get an update. So the 2-week reevaluation period is everyone's favorite. Up as the favorite email that we all like to get. Oh, it's 2 weeks. You reevaluate in 2 weeks. So
who's the biggest beneficiary of him being out?
I think all right, I'm going to give you two answers there. Zion, because this gives him a chance to, space the floor and actually add more to his game. So I think it benefits him in a major way. This is gives him the keys to the car. I think the other person is Trey Murphy, and it has to be Trey Murphy because he is in the lineup now for Brandon Ingram. And now this is for his chance to, show everyone that he is, that high caliber player that needs to be paid a lot of money. Because right now, well, before this month of March, it wasn't that pretty. So now he gets the chance to prove to everyone that, hey, I am the guy that y'all thought I was coming into the season.
Yeah, he shot it awesome. Near 50% from 3-point range for the season is so good. Okay, let's talk some big picture stuff before we get into some nitty gritty. But entering the season, this was kind of the chance for these guys to run it back one more time and see if you could stay healthy and see what the result is. I know that BI's hurt right now, but they've been as healthy a team as there's been in the NBA, and it's looked very, very good, better than it has in a long, long time for this franchise. Now, what's the goal? What's the expectation? What's realistic from now moving forward with this team this season?
The way they're playing, I would think you got to win. You got to win the first round game. First of all, you have to make sure you get in as a non-playing team.
Yeah.
Then, if they continue at this pace and continue playing their best ball at the right time, they have to win. It's going to be win the first round matchup. And then anything from there, I think would be, extra icing or cherry on top of the cake, to me. It'd be great if they can get to the conference finals. means winning the first 2 rounds. It would be great to get to the conference finals. I think that would be over-exceeding the expectations for this season. So the way they're playing, Hunt, I wouldn't put it past them to get to the conference finals. Just the way they are playing, if they could stay healthy, keyword, stay healthy, and continue progressing the way they are and playing the right ball at the right time.
How big is tonight to see Oklahoma City in your building? It's one of the top teams in the league. What does tonight mean? I mean, I know that the criticism is, well, they don't beat the really, really good teams. They just kill the bad teams.
Well, they don't beat the really good teams at home. That's the problem. They just seem to fall flat on their faces a lot at home. Last time they played the Thunder was a good example of that. They absolutely crushed them on a Friday night. Luckily, this game is on a Tuesday night, so there's the good news there. They have to, in this 6-game home stretch, they have to go. I think they could go no worse than 3-3. They need to at least go 3-3, but 4-2 would show everyone that they're real contenders, and they don't have to stop answering those questions. And to go 4-2, they're going to have to beat a couple good teams. The Spurs, the worst team they'll play, but they're also playing Magic, Suns, Bucks, Celtics, and the Thunder tonight. So, they're going to have to prove to everyone that they're real contenders. And, just beating bad teams isn't good enough. They have to beat the good teams at home, and they have to do it here in this 6-game home stretch.
Think they'll win tonight?
Oof, tough, man. I don't know, this matchup has been so bad for them because they're long, athletic. They got, these stretch bigs. They got Shea, who gets every single call under the sun. They're due. They do. And now they came back this year. I think they came back from a 22, 24-point deficit in Oklahoma City to beat them the first time they played. Last game was ugly.
Yeah, last time out they scored in the 80s. So let's try to avoid that.
Yeah, I think they're gonna. I don't know, Hunt. I just don't like this matchup. It's just not a good matchup for them. I know I keep saying that against these athletic teams, and they have to beat them eventually. But I feel better about them going against the Bucks than I do with the Thunder, which is crazy to say because they have Giannis. So I'll say they'll win. I'll say they'll win. I know they're not favored in tonight's game because they're healthy. So I'll say they'll finally catch the Thunder.
We'll see. Tonight, 7 o'clock, we'll be watching that one out at Pluckers for trivia as well. All right, let's talk Saints. The Dennis Allen sound from today, to me, the most impactful comment was about Ryan Ramczyk and the failure of the development with his knee. Was that your biggest takeaway from today?
Yeah, I mean, because we already knew that they were not concerned about, well, they were concerned about Chase Young's neck, but they were, comfortable signing him and him coming back after the surgery. But yeah, I mean, they were optimistic a month ago during the NFL Combine. Dennis Allen was very optimistic about Ramczyk's knee, and now it's like a we'll see situation, and it's not good. It's one of the things we talked about, Hud, when it comes to that, that knee. That I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe doesn't play again, which is unfortunate because he was an all-pro, playing at an all-pro level for all those years, and now that knee, it just can't get right. I mean, I don't know if it's ever going to get right at this, the way it just sounds today. So, yeah, that was the biggest thing that it took away besides, the Chase Young and the Marshawn Lattimore news that he says for now he's on the team. And I'd be surprised if they shopped him now. I mean, they looked at the Jerry Sneed deal and only netted him a 3rd-round pick. I think they're shooting for the sky and the stars when it comes to a Marshawn Lattimore deal. And I think that they would love to get a player and maybe a 2nd-round pick. And, people in the unrealistic world want a 1st-round pick, but I just don't see that happening. You're not getting a 1st-round pick from Marshawn Lattimore.
There's no chance of that. So as far as offensive tackle goes for the Saints, you make one signing. You've got Landon Young, Andrew Peace, a free agent. You've got a 1st-round pick. What needs to happen now at offensive tackle for the Saints?
No Saints fans are going to hate it, but that 14th pick, just go ahead and run to the podium and draft the highest, offensive tackle on the board because that's what's probably going to happen. I mean, 8 of the last 9 years, offensive lineman or defensive lineman in the 1st round, and it's going to be 9 of the last 10, in my opinion, unless something changes. So, and I'm okay with it. I mean, you got a 45th overall pick. I think you should address the receiver position and one of the two. To me, look, Hunt, it could go either way, man. You could take the highest rated offensive tackle or receiver, whichever you think is still the deepest after your pick. I'd probably go with the opposite. Like if Brian Thomas, I think that might be still too high at 14 for Brian Thomas. But if someone is there that's really good, like Rome Odunze from Washington, maybe you take him. But it's going to be hard for me to think that they're going to go away from offensive tackle at 14.
What's your confidence that Derek Carr playing behind this offensive line, even with a new system? Because the offensive line, it's a mess right now, in my opinion.
Well, that's why they have Clint Kubiak, getting a chance to learn under Kyle Shanahan and being creative. So now he's going to have to be really creative with this offensive line, and going to have to use his, fullbacks, going to have to use his tight ends and receivers the same way that they were being used in San Francisco. Get the ball out quick, West Coast type of offense, to avoid Derek Carr getting absolutely pummeled all game long like he was last season. So I think you're going to see a lot of quick stuff. You're going to see a lot of quick passing. You're going to see a lot of, screens and running with Kamara and the running back. So I think that's the only successful way, in my opinion, to keep him upright for most of the season.
He is Sharif Ishak, WDSU, with us every single Tuesday. Thanks, Sharif.
Anytime, Hunt.
Always appreciate our conversations. It's just not sunshine and roses, black and gold right now, but hopefully things pick up. Draft time. Everybody's optimistic during draft time. We'll just have to see who the Saints end up selecting. We'll take one more time out and close things down. Here's a Tuesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions. You can find them online at avssla.com, on Instagram at avss_BR. I was checking out their Instagram earlier today, and they were alluding to the fact that they can, and they have great pictures of it as well. If you're building a home or thinking about building a home, let the folks from Audio Video Security Solutions come in before it's finished up and wire it so that you can have all of that surround sound in your home, in your kitchen, on your back patio, in the living room where you watch all your games and all your movies, in the bathroom if you're looking to listen to some tunes while you're getting ready to go out. All those things can be done from the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions, and it's easy. Do it on the front end if you're building a home. If you're not building a home, you're already in one, that's okay. Not the case for me, and they put all of our sound system in just a few weeks ago, and we absolutely love what we've done with Audio Video Security Solutions. Give Mitchell Fisher a call. Tell him you heard about it on our show. It's 225-439-7920, 225-439-7920. That's the friends over at Audio Video Security Solutions.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
We are coming down the home stretch for the inaugural season of the Baton Rouge Zydeco. Now through March 31st, when the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge team is out at Rouse's on Florida or Burbank, stop by and spin the wheel for your chance to win tickets to see the Zydeco at the River Center. For more information and to purchase single-game tickets, visit brprohockey.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
Closing up shop here. Remind you one more time about Pluckers. Bring you our Tuesday shows each and every week. Beck, what's your favorite Pluckers wing flavor?
That's a good question. I actually worked at Pluckers.
Excellent.
Worked at the Blue Bonnet location for a couple of years. And it over the years, I guess I would have to say it was probably Spicy Ranch.
Okay.
Gold Rush is up there. Baker's Gold. I don't know. I don't really know if I have a favorite, though.
Okay.
Well, but I will say garlic parm. I usually would always do garlic parm fries. You get the fries tossed in garlic parm. It's a little bit of
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can get
you
can get your fries tossed in any wing sauce. By the way, for those
I like
wondering.
the sound of that.
Yeah, it's good.
I just like garlic parm on my wings.
Those are good too.
Also like honey barbecue. I like
honey barbecue,
medium. Yep. I'm not a spicy guy, so I don't want to go way down but I like medium. Mr. Kitchens, you a Pluckers guy?
Yeah, I'm a lemon pepper. I'm a lemon pepper guy. So any spot that has lemon pepper wings, that's all me. That's all
I
me.
hear you. All right, let's play some Take It or Leave It, Back.
All righty, first one here. The NCAA should hold the first weekend of the women's basketball tournament at neutral sites moving forward. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. Look, I like regional and super regional weekend at Alex Box Stadium, and I think the energy and passion that was very evident in the second half of the LSU game here, and that was very evident in Iowa, was awesome last night. I like that. I think that those programs earned the right to play at home. I think the college football playoff games that are going to be home are going to be awesome. The NCAA tournament's great for the men, and you want to do it all over the country. Like that's fine, but I like the home crowd aspect of it. You know, when we get to the higher stages of things, that's fine. Let's put it at neutral sites. Let's let these ladies see the rest of the country. But I'm for getting games on home floors. We do it in our professional sports. You don't have a problem with it, so I'm good with it.
So you would be in favor of doing it for the men's tournament too?
I don't know about that. I don't feel as strongly. I certainly think it would be cool, but I think there's an aspect of this that's cool as well. So it's. I don't want to rock the boat too much with the men's tournament.
Yeah.
I don't want to expand it. I told you I'd drop it back to 64. I don't want to rock the boat too much with that. And this is the same thing with the girls. I don't want to rock the boat there either. I like the passion that's created there, and I think it's cool. You know, who was Iowa playing last night? I saw some of the game, but I can't even.
Oh, the women's team.
Yeah,
it was.
It wasn't Stanford.
No, it wasn't Stanford.
Night?
No, it was. Wow, why can't I think of it?
West Virginia was.
It was West Virginia. Yeah, it was West Virginia.
Okay,
yeah, it was West Virginia.
UCLA was playing Creighton.
Creighton, yeah.
And but like the Western, if you send Iowa and West Virginia to Tampa, like it's just not. I don't know how much juice that's going to have.
Yeah.
It had a ton of juice last night, so I'm for it.
All right, next one here. Louisville is reportedly strongly considering hiring Richard Pitino, not Rick, who has a career record of 77 and 126 in conference games at Minnesota and New Mexico. I think he had one winning season in conference play at Minnesota. Take it or leave it.
I mean, I can't leave it more quickly. I don't know who they've called and who they've talked to, and I don't know what options they've exhausted and who's said no. So I can't speak with complete conviction on this, but this seems pathetic.
Well, look, New Mexico made the tournament this year, Hunt. Obviously, he's a really good coach.
Obviously. 77 and 126 in league games in those two places. This is, it's just, these blue bloods in college basketball are hiring the guy who sits next to the coach or came from the coach. It's Duke, it's North Carolina, now Louisville looks like it's doing this. Like, you should be able to almost name your coach within reason. And to go with a guy who there is a 0% chance if his name was Richard Johnson, he would get the job. 0%. This is only because his last name's Pitino. Because his record sucks. He has accomplished almost nothing as a coach. I'm sure the graduation rates are good. In terms of winning and losing, they stink. So for Louisville to stoop to this would be awful.
Yeah, I'd be shocked. I think, and also, I get the Pitino connection, but also it didn't really end well with Rick Pitino at Louisville, considering all the allegations and everything. I mean,
Rick Pitino sued Louisville.
Yeah,
Now they're trying to hire his son.
Yeah,
that's insane. This is so bad. It's so bad.
Very shocking to me. All right, last one here. Shohei Ohtani said in a prepared statement yesterday that he was shocked that his former interpreter Ipe Mizuhara was stealing money from him to play sports bets, and also said he never bet on baseball or any other sports and never asked somebody to do it on his behalf. Take it or leave it.
We're going to get to the bottom of this. When I say we, not me, but someone's going to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Because it was wagered in an unregulated way, it feels like it's not going to end very well.
Yeah.
Because that bookie has to know that somebody's good for $4.5 million to take that bet. Now, the MGM, as long as you got the cash, doesn't really care where it comes from. You got the cash, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Joe Bookie, you're placing how big a bet? And it's on a line of credit. I don't have the cash. They got to know where it's coming from. And so either Ohtani knew and was just facilitating the gambling deal, or he's placing the bets. And meaning Ohtani is wagering the money, and Imanaga is just the guy who's handing over the cash or whatever. So either way, it's not good. And the thing that he stole the money just doesn't add up, especially because of the things that the way this transpired, where he said, yeah, I was just helping him out, and now, I didn't know anything about it. He stole. It's bad. It's not good.
I got a question, though.
Yes.
I got a question. Do you seriously believe if he does get caught that the MLB is going to do him something? He's the face of the league.
I don't think they have a choice. If something happens,
do you really think so?
They have to. There's no choice.
Pete Rose is the all-time hits leader.
Right, he is.
I mean, you cannot allow anyone to undermine the competitive. If you don't have competitive equity, that's really poorly worded. If you lose the competitive credibility of your league, you lose the league. Yeah. If you can't buy the fact that the players are not throwing games, you can't watch. That is the most important thing to the sport. It can't be any more. If Shohei Ohtani is throwing baseball games, he can never set foot in a major league facility ever again. I don't have a ton of reason to believe he's throwing baseball games, but that's the slippery slope you get on. What doesn't make any sense is a guy that's signing a contract for $500 million is making a $1 million bet. That either screams I have a gambling addiction or I just don't really care. It's an odd deal. So that's it for Take It or Leave It here on this Tuesday. I'll be out at Pluckers tonight for sports trivia. Come on and see us at 8:30. Ryan Ramchick might be done. I talked about it at the top of the show. You can find it on YouTube at Hunt on Saints. Sweet 16 roster composition. We kind of into that, and how does LSU build a Sweet 16 roster? Kind of laid it out. Glenn West was with us an hour at number one. New NFL kickoff rules. Sound from Brian Kelly. Find that at Hunt on LSU on YouTube. Jay Johnson gets you ready for LSU and Southeastern, and Sharif Ishak. All that wherever you find your podcast, and of course on YouTube. We're back same time, same place tomorrow. Matt's going to drive you home on After Further Review. Have a great Tuesday. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.